The camera slips into a silent courtroom where every breath feels borrowed, and one sentence from the bench threatens to rewrite a family's history. Mr. Brown, the fault begins and may end with you. The room freezes, hearts don't. If you want the truth, no one was ready to say out loud, stay with me, and tell me in the comments whether you think the judge is right or wrong. The gavel is pure wood, but tonight it feels like thunder on the desert. We begin in a courtroom of oiled oak and fluorescent light, harsh, honest, merciless. Kody is seated at the defense table, jaw set, fingers curled so tightly his knuckles shine. Across from him, Christine's eyes are steady, Janelle's shoulders are squared, Meri's face is unreadable, and Robyn's hands tremble as she presses a tissue to her lips. The judge surveys all of them, like a man staring at a painting he's seen 1,000 times, knowing the flaw is there, somewhere waiting to be named. Narration comes to rest, a hard, quiet voice taking us through. This is not the Browns' first time under scrutiny, but charges of systematic financial fraud, working money through family businesses, signatures used where trust should have been, turn this soap opera into a court drama that feels like a storm breaking after years of fever. The courtroom murmur is muffled, but electric. A printer wheezes, bailiff boots creak, someone hacks up a cough in his sleeve. The judge, calm, experienced, rests back. We shall find responsibility, he states. Today facts will take precedence over feelings. Kody's lawyer stands, composed, experience. Your Honor, my client is not a genius. He is a father who outsourced. If mistakes were made, they were made in desperation, not conspiracy. A murmur of whispers. Christine glances down, then back. She recalls nights with spreadsheets laid out like maps over a table. Kody's words, trust me. We have a plan. She wanted to believe, for the children's sake, for the family narrative they'd promised America. We dip into a soft flashback. Moving boxes, phone calls, plans for a new home that never came. Bank accounts cross-labeled with hopeful names. Janelle's diligence, Meri's caution, Robyn's loyalty, they were ingredients of a stew that simmered too long. Back in the courtroom, the judge flips a binder. Tabs labeled in yellow, blue, red, season income, speaking fees, small business distribution. These aren't dreams, he says, these are numbers. Kody looks forward, chin aloft, a man trapped between image and fact. He's exhausted. Exhausted from being everybody's news. Exhausted from explaining decisions made for a family that just kept getting bigger and more complicated. But beneath the exhaustion is pride, as hard as stone. He'll not be the bad guy of a book he penned, no matter that the ink has begun to bleed. Before we track the money, consider this question: is leadership even leadership when the people you care about no longer feel led, only exploited? A clerk says, first witness. Christine rises to her feet. The air grows tight. The cliff edge comes into view. Christine raises her right hand to take the oath, and locks eyes with Kody in a gaze that says, today we stop pretending. On the day the accounts were merged, the narration begins. 2 signatures appeared where there should have been 1. And the person who benefits most is the same person who insists he was in the dark. The camera moves in on Christine's face. We're close enough to catch the tremor in her breath, the steadiness in her spine. Christine recounts it not as a victim, but as witness to a gradual, lingering slide. We were promised clarity, she says. We got silence. She recounts a meeting at twilight, bills stacked like dominoes. Kody talked rapidly. Robyn nodded, anxious, always anxious about the show, the children, the murmurs at their front door. It wasn't just money, Christine says. It was belief. And belief is more valuable than the check you cash. Kody's lawyer objects, guesswork, story, enthusiasm without evidence. The judge permits it. We'll get to the documents, he says, but I need the roadmap first. We see the room lurch toward recollection. Text messages printed in a dingy grayscale, emails with subject lines asserting urgent during moments when urgent had already become passé. A note by an accountant, mysterious, guarded, requesting final authorization. The storytelling warps close, like sitting next to you on the couch. For an American audience that's seen families break up and yet still make it to Thanksgiving, you recognize this sensation. Issues don't come with sirens, they whisper. They come in the form of favors, shortcuts, I'll tell you later. Later never materializes. Kody's jaw clenches. You weren't on those midnight calls, he whispers to his lawyer. But Christine was present for the aftermath. The bills that didn't balance, the promises that couldn't pay them back. We signed because we trusted, she says softly. We trusted because for years, trusting him kept the family on stable ground. If trust is currency, then who is in the debt of whom when the vault empty? The judge speaks to the bailiff. Bring me Exhibit C. A ledger slams onto the bench. The page is stamped a week before a surprise reassignment, one that shifted profits from a pooled account into a shell LLC that was connected to a P.O. box in a town the family hardly resided in. The camera cuts close on the line item. Consolidation, temporary. The judge glances up. Temporary, Mr. Brown? Then where is the reversal? We flash to Robyn, glassy eyes. She is no architect. She is the alibi the heart wishes to believe. He was guarding us, she says. From anarchy, from outside voices, from ourselves. The writing relaxes. This is a mother talking. A woman who has seen the roof leak and yet insisted to the children. It's Rain's way of saying hello. Robyn's testimony is a lullaby, attempting to calm a wildfire. She writes of nights, Kody paced, phone hot to his ear. Words like liability, brand and exposure flung like dishes into a sink. She recalls him vowing to clean it up. When the season ended, when the tour ended, when the critics would quiet. The difficulty with when, the narration suggests, is how gradually it becomes never. The prosecutor presses suavely but inexorably. Mrs. Brown, did you personally authorize any of the March transfers? Robyn shakes her head. No. Did you check the statements afterwards? I attempted, she says, but I was assured it was temporary. That transferring funds was transferring furniture before you sweep. She attempts to smile. It does not succeed. I trusted him. We turn to Janelle. Practical, quantifying. The family's ledger personified. I requested a breakdown, she says. I received an overview. I requested receipts. I received reassurance. She says that a household with numerous adults has the ability to conceal 1,000 unanswered questions. Momentum is its own impetus. The next item always comes before the last error has been rectified. Kody's eyes are iron. This is the setting he dreaded. Past loves taking the witness stand like expert witnesses. He wishes he could bellow that he did what leaders do. Make tough decisions, act quickly under duress. But the judge does not grade on intent. He balances outcome. And the outcome is a signature on paper. Lines that wing to one man's desk. When love and leadership meet, which one forgives the spreadsheet? And which one insists on every line item justified? The judge requests silence. He addresses Kody. You will respond, Mr. Brown, following the recess. And you will respond simply. The camera hovers over the room as the bailiff declares recess. Bodies rise, hum of pent energy within them. And for an instant the courtroom is like a church where everybody's praying for a different miracle. In the corridor, Kody sees himself, tie in place, eyes reddened and grumbles. They wanted a patriarch. Now they want a scapegoat. Christine listens behind him. And doesn't blink. The recess is ended. The temperature falls 1 degree. We resume benches that groan, pencils that click like metronomes. The judge, a man who holds work under the sun in high regard, utters Mr. Brown on March 14th. Did you tell your accountant to transfer money without co-signature? There it is. The yes-no answer that can sink a reputation. Kody takes a breath. The description creeps, enveloping the moment. He's taken 1,000 choices in front of cameras. What to speak, how to turn, how to appear confidence, when certainty was out sick. This one doesn't go on television. Yes, he says at last. A whisper gets the room going. But it was temporary. Production had holes. We needed a cushion. Did you put the money back in the original account? The judge asks. Kody's hesitation is an icy gust. Not everything, he admits. Some of it paid for things I thought were communal. The judge's pen freezes. Thought, he says, testing the flavor. Meri observes, eyes edged with saltwater memories. She considers anniversaries counted in camera crews, love woven with logistics. When you live public, she tells herself, private mistakes rent billboards. She recalls signing forms she didn't quite comprehend, because the other choice, saying no, would have been its own earthquake. The prosecutor introduces a chronology. December's head start, January's overload, February's bridge. The story leads like a firm hand on a shoulder. For many families, money is a discussion. Here it became a person, boisterous, commanding, always present. Mr. Brown, says the prosecutor, isn't it true that you made access centralized and responsibility decentralized? Kody bristles. I carried this family, he says, when lights had to remain on, when everyone needed something. I did the asking, the calling, the moving. You want to blame me for doing the hard parts? Fine, I'll take it. He is sounding brave. He is sounding tired. He is sounding like a man who believes surviving is enough innocence. Now and then the distinction between salvaging the ship and pilfering the cargo is a matter of who's got the logbook. The judge inclines forward. Leadership isn't custody, he says. Custody demands agreement. He gestures to the clerk. Market unilateral transfer accepted. Pen scribble. Shoulders slump. Robyn mouths a prayer. Nobody else can hear. The door opens, a new witness walks in. Someone the Browns weren't anticipating. The accountant. Nobody knows the family's numbers better than the man who wore the green eyeshade. Figuratively, that is. He sits, adjusts his tie, and raises a folder that is heavier looking than paper. I kept records, he says. I also kept warning. The words hang like a chandelier over tile. He details emails marked important, midnight phone calls, instructions that were urgent sounding but had no audit trail. I asked for co-signatures, he says. I got oral approvals instead. He looks at Kody. Not nasty, not nice, just a matter of fact. My client felt that speed guarded the brand. I felt that documentation guarded the individuals. We found middle ground, and in finding middle ground, we generated risk. The narrative creeps up, whispering, this is the way families collapse in slow motion, under the burden of good intentions piled on top of old ways. The accountant gestures to an entry titled Appearance Relocation. What's that? The prosecutor asks. It's money that was attached to future effort used to cover over current gaps, he says. It's not uncommon in business. It's perilous in families. Janelle moves, awareness lighting up in her eyes. That's the month I requested the line by line, she speaks to herself. Meri clamps her hand around a pen that never wavers. Christine observes the judge, not Kody, because she wants to know what fairness looks like when it finally arrives. Robyn gazes down, blinking back tears, as if words themselves could smudge. Kody clears his throat, his voice raw. Tell them why, he instructs the accountant. Tell them we were hemorrhaging cash on moves, on legal, on living. The accountant nods his head. They were, he says. But the remedy elected centralized decision-making in one individual. And when you centralize power, you centralize blame. If one has the keys, everyone else is in jail, even if they reside in the same home. The judge interlaces his fingers. Thank you, he says. He addresses Kody, then the women. To the faces of a family become a franchise and then neither. Here is what the court knows so far, he says in an even tone. Money flowed without necessary permission. Reasons came instead of moving on. And the burden of proof, Mr. Brown, now rests where the benefit once was, firmly in your chair. A silence ensues that is like the prelude to a monsoon's break. Somewhere, a fluorescent light hums. The gavel lies motionless, but the sentence of hearts within the room inches nearer to its own verdict. The judge pauses as if to recite the line that will sear the night into memory. Based on the papers before me, he says, I am willing to say. The courtroom leans forward. The screen goes black. When numbers quit lying, the voiceover intones. It's the human beings behind them who have to account for why they did. The fluorescent lighting in the courtroom seems more unforgiving now. Each shadow casts longer. The accountant's affidavit has flipped the playing field. But what follows will rattle the whole case. The prosecutor comes forward with a single sheet of paper. Not dozens, not a binder, but one. Mr. Brown, she starts. Do you know what this is? Kody leans forward, eyes squinting at the document. It's a signed authorization for a wire transfer. $1.20 million made to a firm called Polaris Management Group. This was your signature, she says. Yes, Kody concedes. And the company is a vendor, he answers hastily. They distributed. The prosecutor advances closer. Did you know Polaris Management belongs to a cousin of yours? The courtroom gasps. Even Robyn, whose devotion to Kody appeared absolute, turns on him with dismay etched into her face. Christine folds her arms. So that's where the money went, she whispered. Kody's attorney attempts to object. Irrelevant, unrelated business entity. But the judge waves his hand. It's relevant if intent is in question, he says. The story lingers. Theatrically, this is where motive creeps into evidence. If the money was channeled through a family member's business, then temporary could begin to resemble diversion. And diversion in the court's eyes is fraud. Kody stiffens his back. I did what I believed best for the family, he maintained. I didn't take anything from anybody. But his voice breaks on the final word. Robyn cannot keep it in anymore. Best for the family, she snaps, her face streaming with tears. Or best for you, because I never got a penny of that distribution. Her tirade is shut down by the judge's gavel, but the die has been cast. The courtroom vibe has shifted. Kody is no longer the benevolent patriarch. He's the man with too many secrets and too few answers. Sometimes the truth isn't secrets. It's just masquerading as responsibility. The prosecutor concludes her examination with one last heavy question. Mr. Brown, isn't it true that these transfers, these choices were made to hide assets from those with a rightful claim to them? Even your own wives. Kody doesn't respond. The silence is deafening. The judge sighs heavily, looking at the clock. We will meet again tomorrow, he says. And Mr. Brown, bring your explanation. The following morning, a storm is raging outside the courthouse, but it is nothing like the one raging inside. Protesters stand on the steps, holding signs that say justice for the wives and fraud is still fraud. Inside there is a charged atmosphere. Today the judge will push harder. And so will the women who once put their world in Kody's hands. Christine is back on the stand. But this time she's not only a witness, she's a plaintiff. I spent 27 years thinking we were partners, she says, her voice shaking but steady. I gave him my loyalty, my time, my salary. And he used it to construct something I never got to have. Janelle is next, her voice colder, sharper. We weren't wives, she states firmly. We were investors. And we didn't even know it. The narrative intensifies. For years the Brown family peddled a narrative. Unity, cooperation, common purpose. But at its core was a pecking order. One that now lies revealed. Kody fidgets nervously as Christine's attorney displays a chart. Every transaction, every payment, every withdrawal, all lead to Kody. Even the kids' college accounts. Christine whispers. They vanished into accounts I had no idea existed. Kody stands up quickly. I was trying to save us, he bursts. Do you think the show paid for all of this? Do you think the network paid for the legal fees, the moving fees, the mortgages? His voice bounces off the walls, but the judge does not budge. Intent is noted, he says quietly, but intent does not eliminate responsibility. When trust is lost, even explanations are excuses. As the session comes to a close, Meri addresses the room. For the very first time during the entire trial, I stuck by you longer than I should have, she says softly. But this isn't about the past anymore. This is about what you did when you thought none of us were looking. Kody's face smooths. Regret? Perhaps fear. Perhaps both. The judge clears his throat. The final stage. Closing arguments tomorrow. And Mr. Brown, he bends forward. Be prepared to hear things you will not like. The last day, all the seats are occupied. Reporters jostle in the rear. A nation that watched this family for love and laughter now watches for justice. The gavel thunders down, and silence descends upon the courtroom. The prosecution starts. This is not about reality TV, she starts. This is about reality. A man who amassed power, abused trust and siphoned off assets, all in the guise of leadership. She points to the wives. These women thought they were part of a family. They were part of a scheme that was financial. Photos, paperwork, emails, each piece of it helps the puzzle to fit together into a condemning image. The jury fidgets in their chairs. Even the judge's face looks more serious. Now. Undefined. Kody, lawyer responds with zeal. My client is not a criminal, he maintains. He is a man beset by duty, doing what he believed it took to keep a family unlike any other alive. Were there errors made? Yes. But fraud? Intent to injure? Absolutely not. The storytelling gives it more force. It's a good defense, but the evidence is better. Lastly, Kody gets to say something. He regards Christine, Janelle, Meri, Robyn, each face a page of his life. I loved you all, he says. I made decisions to shield us, not to destroy us. If that makes me guilty of something, it's of trying too hard. Tears fall down Robyn's face. Christine's face remains impassive. The truth is not always a matter of who's right. Sometimes it's about who's finally held to account. The judge nods slowly, taking in every word. I will render my verdict tomorrow morning, he says. Until then, I advise everyone to steel themselves for what justice requires. As the courtroom clears, Kody stays in his seat, gazing at the vacant defense table, his own reflection in the highly polished wood glaring back. unflinching. The last morning broke colder than usual. The story starts, as if the sun itself refused to see what was to be. The courthouse steps are crowded with cameras and murmur. Inside, the Browns stand one final time. No more cross-examination. No more testimony. Just judgment. The courtroom is quiet, weighed down with years, decades of choices now condensed into a few pages of law. The judge appears, robe billowing behind him like a dark cloud, and sits without comment. Kody gazes directly in front of him. Christine's hand clings to the edge of the table. Janelle fixes her eyes on the seal above the bench. Meri breathes out, steady and slow. Robyn says her prayers silent, lips flexed by unspoken words. The judge clears his throat. This case, he begins, is not about polygamy. It is not about television. It is about fiduciary responsibility. And what happens when that responsibility is violated? Every syllable lands like a gavel strike. He recaps the facts: unauthorized transfer, concealed accounts, misuse of shared funds. He references Christine's testimony, Janelle's evidence, Meri's statement, Robyn's admission. Each thread alone might fray, he says. Together they weave a clear picture. Kody adjusts his cufflink, his lawyer muttering something unintelligible. The judge goes on. The defense says these were desperate acts, not dishonest. Desperation is not a defense for dishonesty, and leadership is not a shield against responsibility. The room is utterly still. Even the journalists have stopped typing. Therefore, the judge says, this court finds Mr. Kody Brown liable for misappropriation of family assets and breach of fiduciary. Gasps ripple through the room. Christine closes her eyes. Janelle exhales sharply. Meri's lips tremble, just slightly. Robyn clasps her hands tighter. Kody's universe appears to contract in upon itself. His face sets in a hard line, but the facade of self-control starts to crumble. In addition, the judge goes on. This court directs restitution to be made to the plaintiff, Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, Meri Brown, and Robyn Brown, in the sum of $7.2 million. The pace of the story slows, the language measured. It's not money alone. It's the formal acknowledgement that the man who constructed a family dynasty also tore it down. Piece by piece, signing by signing. Sometimes justice is not punished, it's naming the evil that was done in silence. The judge is not done. Finally, he says, this court remands the matter to the state's financial crimes for further consideration. There could be criminal charges. That last part hammers home. Kody slumps. The courtroom explodes. Reporters bolting out. Camera lights flashing like lightning. As the gavel comes down for the final time, Kody faces the women who once were his soulmate. I never intended to hurt you, he whispered, but not one of them responds. When the dust settles, the voiceover murmurs. The truth doesn't. It hangs resonating in the places where trust resided. The trial is done, but the tale is only just beginning. Outside the courthouse, the media storm rages. Christine, now remarried and radiant in her independence, tells reporters, this was never about revenge. It was about closure. Janelle, steady and composed, adds, I hope this teaches others. Family doesn't mean surrendering your rights. Meri, emotional but dignified, simply says, I'm ready to start over. Robyn is still conflicted. I still love him, she tearfully confesses in an interview. But love and responsibility are not the same. Today I learned that the hard way. Kody walks out of a side door, flanked by cameras and pandemonium. Where he was once the self-assured patriarch of a large family, he appears diminished now, older, as if lost. I did what I believed was best, he says to journalists. History will determine whether I was in error. But history already has, and so has the judge. The telling becomes musing. This was never merely a courtroom fight. It was an accounting, for a man who constructed a legacy on faithfulness, yet betrayed it. For women who believed in togetherness, yet discovered their strength in being apart. For viewers who witnessed a dream family and now witness a cautionary tale. The fallout grows in the weeks to come. Book contracts, interviews, new business. Christine opens a foundation to help women escaping controlling relationships. Janelle opens a personal finance podcast. Meri publishes a memoir called Signed Without Consent. Robyn retreats from the spotlight altogether. And Kody? Whispers circulate of criminal investigations and the seizure of assets. Once the public face of plural marriage, now he has a future that is marked by courtrooms and repercussion. In the end, the truth did not tear them down. It set them free. As the final narration of the series swells, we see them one last time, not as a family, but as individuals who walk their own ways. Some smiling, some recovering, some still torment. The chapter Sister Wives ends not with reunion, but with responsibility. And now, dear viewer, a question you alone can answer. Did you think Kody was a manipulator who finally got his comeuppance, or a man brought down by his own imperfect efforts to defend the people he loved? Tell us what you think in the comments. The discussion is just starting.